Good morning and welcome to Community Office Hours. We are going to start streaming to Facebook Live and we will get started. Good morning to everyone joining us on Zoom. We are just about to get started. We're just going to start streaming on Facebook Live.
There's always sometimes difficulties in the technical arena here.
All right, this is what happens when we rely on technology. This is a Facebook issue right now, so we are just waiting for Facebook to connect to Zoom. Should be right back. So let's do this the old-fashioned way. Maybe Councilmember, if you want to, can you go down to your more button?
Not sure I have a more button.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I have to make you host for that to happen. Okay, we're gonna do this. We have two attendees, Alfonso and Jackie. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Just having a little bit of a technical glitch with Facebook. We're just waiting to stream live. So just bear with us 1 minute. We're gonna go through go through a little process to try and do this another way. So council member, I'm gonna make you host. If you could please click on the participants button. And
Participant?
Yeah, and click on District 10 and make co-host. And now on the bottom, click on more. And you see live on Facebook?
Yeah.
I'll try and do that. Thank you, Jackie and Alfonso, for your patience. We're just trying to get this on Facebook live.
It's asking me for username and password.
Oh boy, you're on a different computer.
It's preparing, it says. I think I'm doing this correctly.
Yeah, that's what I think it's a Facebook issue. That's what was happening on my end, but hopefully it works for you. Sometimes these things happen. Is it giving you any more options?
I think we're live. Okay. All right. So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining me this morning for our monthly District 10 Community Office Hours. And we used to do this at Hub's Coffee, and because of COVID, we're having to do these things on Zoom, and sometimes we have technical difficulties. So I apologize for the length of time here that it took to get us on Facebook Live. As always, my staff is here to help you with any questions. So if you have questions, either put them in the Zoom Q&A or on Facebook as well, and we'll have members of my staff. We have great interns on today, and they'll be getting your questions out live. So let's catch up. What's been happening last couple of weeks? And I can tell you, last week we did not have a council meeting, and the week before that, it was about 16 hours long, discussing all kinds of things, including, commercial impact fees and all kinds of things that we put forward the week before last. This coming week, in September 15th on Tuesday, we'll be discussing a lot of police reforms. And a lot of people are very interested in this topic. So it won't be the first one on the agenda. Our meetings usually start at 1:30. But this one will be last, and I don't think it will be discussed before 6 or 6:30, maybe even later, depending on how long the other items take. It will be the last on our agenda. And we're going to be discussing things like limiting the use of rubber bullets, tear gas. We're going to be putting forward the police videos during, the riots and protests that happened in downtown. We'll be discussing use of force, and this is this is not the first time we've discussed these topics, but staff is coming back with solutions and ideas. And so there's a lot of things moving forward. Something that we already put forward it will be on your ballots, and it's going to be called Measure G. And it will actually increase the authority of the independent police auditor. Right now, the independent police auditor can only audit complaints that the public gives them directly. With this change, the independent police auditor will be able to audit all use of force complaints, the ones that come to them directly or the ones that come to the police department's internal affairs department. So please do vote for this one. This is one of the ways that our city can can make sure that our police are acting in the best interests of our citizens, and and like I said, they already have a hard job, and a lot of times some of these complaints are false as well. So we have to make sure that that all points of views are heard, and this is what the independent police auditor, the independent police auditor does for us, and this will give them a lot more cases to handle because they'll have access to everything. So that is called Measure G. Again, it'll be on your ballot, and actually does a couple of other things, including increasing the size of the Planning Commission to 11. Right now it's only 7, and a lot of people complain that there's not enough jurisdictional representation from the districts, and tends to be heavily in one district or another. And ways to deal with redistricting if the census data comes in late. So that is kind of wrapped up into Measure G. We'll be talking about that. This week we received numerous complaints about trash on Highway 85 and Almond Expressway. Now, most people don't know that actually that is District 9, but we are, as frustrated as all of you. I can tell you that we've lodged numerous complaints with Caltrans. Caltrans is the one that owns all the highways, all the highway off-ramps, and we actually have to have permission to go on their properties. And quite frankly, it is their responsibility to clean it up. Now, they've told us that the governor's shelter-in-place orders includes not moving homeless encampments, which is one of the problems. They say that they don't want to disturb homeless individuals, for public safety reasons, and they also want to avoid spreading COVID. So this is what they're telling us is the reason why they're not cleaning up our highways. So I'm super frustrated, and I could tell you that in my I was told that despite all that, they're going to be cleaning up that intersection on the 15th of this month. That being said, there's many other areas of our district and the city that I'd love to start cleaning up because I am tired of seeing the blight like all of you. So my office is going to be conducting volunteer garbage cleanups to fight the blight, basically. We are trying to coordinate with the police department and our office of the garbage folks, so that when we do pick up the garbage, somebody actually takes it away. So we are putting these things together. We're learning how to put together a volunteer opportunity, in these COVID times, and how to do it safely. So look for more to come on the blight issues that I feel as strongly as all of you. In fact, I literally wrote a memo with a couple of my colleagues to go into negotiations so that our community can actually clean up. The city can actually clean up and bill Caltrans if they don't do it themselves. And so I hope that goes forward. That'll be coming to the Rules Committee. The 16th. So it'll be discussed on the 16th. So that memo. So in any case, I do sympathize with everybody who's super frustrated with the way that our city looks. I agree with you all, and I promise you I will do my best to help get the city cleaned up one way or the other, with permission or without, for that matter. So without going too further into to talk any more about anything else, we do have a very special guest with us this morning. So we wanted to welcome Ray Riordan. He's the director of he's a director in the emergency management of the city of San Jose, the Office of Emergency Management. So I have one of my staff members who's going to read his quite lengthy bio because he's just a dynamic, fantastic person. So is Adrian available to read Ray's bio?
Yes, thank you, Councilmember. So with 34 years of emergency management experience, Raymond Riordan is currently the director of the City Manager's Office of Emergency Management for the City of San Jose. He was hired following the historic February 2017 Coyote Creek flood and assisted the city in recovery from the flood and ensuing action to address the over 240 items identified in the Post-Disaster After Action and Improvement Report. His past employment included Program Manager for Emergency Preparedness for the City of San Ramon Police Department, Acting Executive Director for the California Utilities Emergency Association, the Acting Security and Emergency Manager for East Bay Municipal Utility District, and Senior Emergency Planner for Contra Costa County. He is a certified emergency manager recognized by the International Association of Emergency Managers. Among his professional awards, he is the 3-time recipient of the International Association of Emergency Managers Association Partners in Preparedness Award and 3-time recipient of the California Emergency Services Association President's Award for leadership in emergency management. He completed a BS degree from Santa Clara University, a MS degree in industrial organization from San Jose State University, and he has published articles on emergency planning in several journals, including the American Water Works Association Journal magazine. Welcome, Ray.
I have to say that I think, Amal, I don't know if we're actually going live. My screen seems to be stuck.
Yes, there is unfortunately a glitch with Facebook Live right now. It's nothing on our end, it's nothing that we can do, but we are recording this. We are going to try and hopefully get this up to Facebook Live in a few minutes. And if we don't, we will upload it to Facebook where viewers can then watch it on Facebook later. And so this is being recorded right now, and we are going to upload this recording. But sorry, Ray, to interrupt your wonderful introduction. That is a very lengthy bio, a very impressive work. So welcome, Ray. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yes, and I apologize. I didn't mean to. I just been getting texts from other people saying, "Hey, we can't see you live." So this will be posted. Okay, so first I wanted to say thank you for joining us, and we'll get this straightened out one way or the other. But let us know, what exactly is the Office of Emergency Management? And I hear that you have a presentation.
Sure, thank you, and thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. I really do appreciate working with you, Councilmember Khamis, and all the programs that we've been having so far, and particularly the resurrection of our Community Emergency Response Team program, or the CERT program. Let me bring up my screen, and I'll answer that first question that you did bring up. And let's see if this goes, maybe this will work. There we are. Let me put it on the presentation mode. Is it showing there?
Yes, but not in the full screen sense. Yes.
It's not. Okay, I'm seeing it on my screen. Let's try it again.
I mean, we can't see it, but it shows the side screen.
Let me see if that fixes it.
It's one of those mornings. The moon or it must be somewhere.
The technology is not working on my end either. Come on. Let me unstop sharing it and see if I can fix it that way by doing it this way. And
you'll find this funny. This morning I logged into the wrong Zoom meeting. And I don't know what. I missed a number or a slash or something.
Okay.
Well, this does show your slideshow, but it also shows the side slideshow.
All right, I'll try this again. Let me see. There, how about now?
Nope.
Showing full screen here. Let's see if I can reduce this. So that's out of the way, and we'll just go this way.
Okay, that's fine.
We can figure that's what emergency management is about, is being flexible, figure out other ways of doing things. But primarily, our office, we focus a lot on what are the hazards we face in our community. And in San Jose, we have a significant amount of emergencies that we potentially could have. Everything from the catastrophic emergencies of natural hazards. And this is what we really focus on. And these are not a priority, but in terms of categories that the federal government looks at: natural hazards, technological hazards, terrorism threats, and international threats we can face. So a lot of what we do is focus on what we can control, the things, while we can't control the earthquake from happening, we can control how we respond to it, how we respond to a flood, a fire. So the Office of Emergency Management works with not only our internal staff, but with all the agencies, because community resiliency cannot operate on its own without everybody's involvement. So it involves the families and involves the residents, anybody visiting our community, the City of San Jose response and operations, and working with our community partners. So our purpose as an office is to bring all these resources together in a planned, direct response to any emergency that we face. So that's the general purpose of the Office of Emergency Management in a real short nutshell.
Well, Ray, I think your slideshow kind of went dark on us again.
Oh, no.
Let's have Adrian share it from his end. So we're going to stop sharing, I guess.
Let's see, let me try one more time because I changed the order of the slides from what Adrian's got, I think.
I sent him the second version.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah. So he has
Yeah.
a second version. So let's try that end. And this
Technology.
is all a test. This is all a test so that we can be prepared in an emergency.
Yes.
So here we go. Take two.
Oh, that looks much
Okay.
better.
Yeah, okay, there we go. Go back to the previous slide. I think that's the important one. I think it's a previous slide. There we go.
Or this one.
Okay, that's the intro. Go to the next slide. And of course, this year has been a unique year. And what's been unique about it, obviously, is the number of emergencies we've had so far. In my 34 years, I've never had an experience where we've had so many at one time. I've dealt with many emergencies in a single year, but not at this time when we have COVID going on. We have civil unrest occurring, did occur in the past. Fire weather, which is, there's a prompt and a need to pay attention to the different conditions that we face in an emergency and be prepared for fires as they come. And then of course, we've had our fire response and then dealing with power outages and public safety power shutoffs. The power outages we've experienced thus far have been focused on equipment failures. And I know in your community, in the District 10 area, there was a number of times when power was coming on and coming off, and period of times when some folks had no power for up to 3 days. That was not part of any public safety power shutoff or even part of the Cal ISO the brownouts. This was all focused on equipment outages that have occurred so far by PG&E. And we are preparing, even though they did say and announce public safety power shutoffs, we actually didn't experience any in San Jose. Those are yet to come. Those are still part of our future here as we have future fire weather coming up. And so we do continue to work with COVID and the response there. And what we all need to understand is that the lead agency in our communities is the county public health officer. They have significant authority to challenge us and keep operations at a minimum because of the public health threat. And it's not something that we can manage. It's something that's directed by the public health officer of the county, following direction also by the state health officer. The next slide. There we go. And this is, if you didn't see this slide before, this is what I was saying is the key responsibilities of the Office of Emergency Management is to bring these three groups and resources together. You, the residents, the community, the city of San Jose, and community partners. Without all of these organizations being involved, we will not be very resilient. Resilience relies on these three pieces coming together and working with all the organizations that we have available to us, everything from the American Red Cross to the National Weather Service and other organizations as well. Next slide. These are the list, if you couldn't see this list that I was referring to earlier, of the variety of emergencies that have been identified in the city of San Jose. Even though this says 2015 is still a current list, not much has changed. We have our natural hazards, technological hazards, terrorism threats, and international threats that we have to pay attention to. And our real focus in many years has been on the natural hazards. And the next slide shows just how close it was. Go ahead to the next slide. How we had fires on either side of the city. Fortunately, it kept away from the city, but we had to stay aware, alert, and prepared for any potential evacuations that could have occurred. Next slide. So our real concern and our request of the community, this is Emergency Preparedness Month in the nation. September is nationally the emergency preparedness thing. And definitely we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to put together a go bag. What is that go bag? The go bag is a small bag. It can be whatever size you want, but you already have prepared copies of important papers. So maybe you've Xerox, that's an old term. You've scanned important documents like insurance documents, photos of your children, your pets. So in case you get separated, you make sure you have some documentation that make sure that they can connect. You know, birth certificates, all those other kinds of important documents you can have them scanned on a thumb drive or put them up on the web somewhere in a site, a secure site, obviously. But in there, you will have some food, some water, some things that can sustain you for a short period of time and process, excuse me, like food and water and other supplies that we would need. But think about this. If you only had 15 minutes to evacuate, what would you take? You should take the time now to think about those things. If you had a half hour, an hour, warning, you might be able to take more things with you. But what are the most important things to take with you at the time you need to go? And my question to you is, what's your plan? Put a plan together and have a method or resource to communicate with each other and or communicate and understand what's going on by having radios available to listen to KCBS News or other emergency broadcast stations. Those are important things to understand. And we do encourage you to become a CERT member with the Community Emergency Response Team. We are reinitiating the program 2 years ago. And now with COVID, we're trying to figure out ways of doing the training remotely, because a lot of these skills you have to learn are hands-on skills. So we're trying to figure out how we can teach these things in a non-contact environment so we can continue the program. The next slide, please. So if you wanted some resources, these resources are very important ones. On our website, the city website, sanjoseca.gov, there's an emergency page, and it keeps you up to date with all the things that are going on. We had information up there during the fires. We have information up there currently right now because of the air quality. So there's important information up there on a regular basis, and we also publish some what we call flash reports. On the emergency management webpage, that's a longer URL there, we have information on how can you be trained, what kinds of supplies you need to consider having, as well as information on the training for the CERT program. There's also with FEMA, ready.gov is a good website that has a lot of information on preparedness and thoughts and programs that you can participate in as well. I think that's the bulk of my presentation on emergency preparedness. The next couple of slides are more on the COVID response and things of that nature. And we can get into that a little bit later with some questions.
Yeah, well, thank you, Ray. And I appreciate if anybody heard that we are trying to bring up the CERT training program. But well, let me start by taking the questions that were presented already via the internet last night. And this is one from Varun. What should people prepare in case of emergency evacuation? How can we help provide for those who have lost a lot due to the wildfires?
So I'm hearing a couple questions in there, council member. And I think one of them is, how can I help? If we're not affected, what's the best way of offering our assistance or service? Becoming a member or a volunteer of the American Red Cross is very important. They're the main lead agency in providing support and resources to communities that are affected significantly. We don't want people bringing their old clothes and meals to facilities, because public health rules at shelters do not allow us to share food that's brought in from the outside. It has to be prepared and processed by the agency managing shelter operations. So listening to news about where to donate, where to provide resources, that's an important thing to understand. For what we need to do in preparing for an evacuation is I need to think about if I need to leave my home here. Currently I have my wife and our dog. So the three of us would make sure that we have, and we always do, we have a can in our garage door. It's a garbage can on wheels. And in there we've got food, we've got water. We have copies of important documents. We usually keep some cash in hand. We grab that as we go. So those are the things we know we want to take. And in that thumb drive we have in there, again, we have all our important papers. We even have pictures of our home. So we could prove to insurance agencies, this is what we had in our house when it burned down, if it was a fire coming. So you want to have some forethought about things that you need to take when you need to evacuate, resources that you can take with you as you leave so you can be self-sustaining for a period of time, because it takes a while to prepare shelters. And in the days of COVID, we cannot put as many people in a shelter as we used to. We have to make sure they're socially distanced, and so that means more shelters have to be set up. But those can't be identified until there's an understanding of where the emergency is located. So there's some time in between. There's a gap there that you need to be able to fill with your own resources. So the things that I have in my kit include canned foods that I already like. So if I don't like anchovies, don't put a can of anchovies in the can. Make sure it's food that you normally eat. If you don't like Dinty Moore's beef stew, don't put that in there. If you like tuna, put tuna. So put cans of food in there, food that can last a long period of time. Make sure you have plenty of water, at least a gallon of water per person per day. So you need to think about 3 days, a minimum of 3 days, and as long as 7 days for response to some of these events. And just as a point of issue is when you have public safety power shutoffs, last year they said they would last as long as 7 days. Fortunately, they did not last that long for us in the community. But we have that kind of resources. You need to think about emergency power sources. So you might have flashlights for light. You might have headlamps or other types of flashlights so you can use them simply. We also make sure we take some source of entertainment. While I can beat my wife in cribbage, she doesn't like that, but we have a cribbage board in there. So we have some games to play if we need to play some games for entertainment. So we have a variety of things in our emergency kit that we make sure we have available, and we check it at least once a year for any items that could potentially expire. So that's what we have in our emergency kit when we're ready to go.
Well, I love that rolling garbage can idea. That's a good hint out there. You know, that's the only way you can roll out, you know, enough water anyway to away from a burning house or something.
Yeah.
So, and I wanted to thank the public. You know, during these fires, our Westgate Church at South Hill put together a emergency, you know, water and other amenities, and we actually filled up 6 truck loads and sent them to the Santa Cruz shelters. So I do want to thank the public for helping all those who were in need, and the leaders at the Westgate Church that put that event together. I have a question here from John. Does District 10 have a mass messaging protocol, and was it used during COVID? And maybe not District 10 specifically, but tell us about the mass messaging that the city does.
Well, happy to talk about that. We didn't use it too much in COVID, but we've used it during the fire events, and we've used it in other events in the past. So there's a program called Alert SCC, and that's alertscc.gov. And you go to that website, you can sign up for getting emergency information that is being broadcast. So when an emergency occurs, we activate what's known as an Emergency Operations Center. And in the Emergency Operations Center, we bring in personnel with different skills to do certain jobs. And one of the most important jobs we have is our Emergency Public Information Officer. That Emergency Public Information Officer then puts together messages that need to go out. In the Alert SCC materials or program, we can put out messages 90 characters long and 300 characters long. And we have to do that because not all phones have the ability to produce or receive long messages. Some phones still out there can only receive 90 characters. And in that 90 characters, we tell you about the emergency, information that you need to know, and give you at least a link to more detail that you can collect and understand what the emergency is. So this year, during COVID, we didn't use that feature, but we used another feature that we can use in our public information for mass notification. And that's what we call our flash reports. So we put that out to all the media sources, social media, as well as the professional media, and information on our website and the primary website. It'll give you information about what rules are in place, what do we need to follow for COVID, and the communication that way. When we had the fire, the SCU Lightning Complex fire to our east, the fires were coming toward our city boundaries. So then we prepared messages of be ready. If you need to evacuate, be prepared. And these were short messages that went out on our media, and it was targeted. You didn't hear it in the District 10 area because we targeted just District 3, 4 area because that was the area in threat. And so these messages went out to the community, and we can identify specific community, a specific area that we want these messages to go. Now, sometimes technology, as we were experienced with today and try to get this set up, it has its own mind, and it can broadcast occasionally. A certain tower might broadcast over a wider area, but we try to target a specific area in need. Last year on February 13th of 2019, we had sufficient rain that we had to put out warnings of flooding. And again, we were able to pick certain blocks that we sent that information to, those neighbors around the Ross Creek area and the Guadalupe River. We sent messages in specific areas. So if you sign up through Alert SCC, that's the best way to get those kinds of messages, so we make sure you're in the know when the time comes.
Thank you, Ray. And our next question is from Amy. What is your backup plan if the first responders get ill? Do we have reciprocity with other cities to send first responders to San Jose?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I appreciate that one. There's a program called Mutual Aid, and all jurisdictions within the state of California have signed on to this program called Mutual Aid. That allows our police and our firefighters to immediately call up resources beyond the city and ask for assistance because this emergency is affecting us so greatly. That is something we actually used in the February 2017 floods, as we called up other fire resources to come assist us in the flood response and recovery during that time. So that's a very program that's practiced daily almost in terms of response. And now you were seeing emergencies such as the fires that are gathering so many resources within the state that we're actually now, as a state, we're receiving resources from other states, other countries, countries as far away as Israel and Australia have sent mutual aid resources to the state of California to help fight these fires.
Wow, that's amazing. So we have another couple of questions. They didn't want to put their names public. So what is the plan to evacuate the elderly? What is, who is priority and who determines who is evacuated first?
Well, let me say anybody in peril is a priority. Anybody that of the facilities that have elder care in them, we have all those recorded so that we know when we have an emergency, we have those facilities identified ahead of time in that part of the community. We rely on the resources of those such as the Silicon Valley Independent Living Center and other nonprofit organizations that have the skill sets and resources that come in and help us evacuate those who are elderly, those who are less able to move, that have mobility issues. And we use those communities to help us, those resources, nonprofit organizations, to help us identify additional personnel that need assistance. So if anybody who does have that need and we haven't gotten there, 911 is still the way to communicate and say we need assistance in evacuating. And we will gather what resources we can from those community nonprofits as well as the city resources to help respond to that evacuation need.
Yeah, and I could tell you, you know, a couple of months ago, we did have a fire in the San Francisco foothills, and the messages did go out. In fact, I think they went out too far, you know, and the people were asked to shelter in the Almaden Community Center. So a lot of people showed up, and we had social distancing, you know, tables set up 6 feet away from each other, and the parking lot was turned into a, you know, kind of a campground. That was kind of a wake-up call, and at least from my office, I was out there with our fire chief trying to get people to understand what resources were available to them and what have you, so that we did have, you know, kind of a real drill recently in the Almaden Valley. Another question, does the city have enough PPE?
That's a really good question. And it's very important to understand, we've been really working with each department to understand how much PPE they need to be out in the community as they are. We have not just our police and fire department are out in the community. We have folks from our planning, building, and code enforcement. All these acronyms are going through my mind first, and I want to make sure I say the names of the departments before I use the acronyms. So our PBCE department, they're out there doing permit inspections. And so we have a lot of staff, our Parks and Recreational and Neighborhood Services staff out at the community centers. We need to make sure that they have enough PPE, and we definitely do have, in terms of our operations, provide that in response. And when we had, such as the evacuation and people coming together at the center, we also had PPE there to make sure that if people didn't bring their face coverings, we had PPE there to make sure we had public health covered.
All right, and I think that's the end of the questions that we received in advance. And so usually, Ray, we take whatever questions come from the public, and sometimes.
Sorry, we do have questions. We have questions.
Oh, you do? Okay, go ahead.
So yes, we're still having a glitch with Facebook Live, but we put a message. And so many of those people have actually joined us here on Zoom. So welcome to everyone who had issues watching us on Facebook Live. It was a Facebook Live glitch. We're still trying to stream, but it's still not working. And so thank you for joining us here on Zoom. And so Adrian has taken some questions. If you are on and you would like to ask a question directly, please put in the Q&A or put in the chat, and we'll unmute your line so you can ask directly. And I'm going to hand it over to Adrian to ask some of the questions that have already come in. We're going to take some questions that are geared towards the Office of Emergency Management first, and so we can let Director Ray Riordan go, because I'm sure he is tremendously busy in the midst of all these emergencies going on right now. And then we will take District 10 questions towards the end of the office hours. So I'll hand it over to Adrian right now to ask questions. And I believe Ken and Kavya also will have a question to ask. Go ahead, Adrian.
Thanks, Mel. So our first question from the attendees is from Bijan. And he asks, if fires reach San Jose, what would the city's plan be?
Thank you, Bijan. It's a good question. And that's what we experienced recently with the CSU lightning complex fires that occurred. That fire was actually a result of 12 different fires coming together. They were all 12 different lightning strikes that hit in different places east of San Jose. It burned up to the ridges and stayed apart. So what did we do? in that kind of a fire, the California Fire Department, the California Forestry and Fire Protection Department, also known as CAL FIRE, they have jurisdiction and they have control. What they do is they bring in not just CAL FIRE resources, but local resources, like the city of San Jose actually sent resources in to help fight with that fire. They set up perimeters and control, and their command center was actually located at the Alameda County Fairgrounds. They had control of all the resources. They shut down all the roads they needed. They set all the evacuation zones. Our city departments, like our GIS department, our Geographical Information System, Spatial Design department, put together maps so we could track maps, and you could track them online because they were available publicly to see where the fire zones were located. We also put out notices to those areas that were most likely affected by the emergency, so they would get emergency information. We provided them information, at least the bursts of information, as I discussed earlier, in using the Alert SEC system, which we do encourage those who missed that discussion we had. We do encourage everyone to sign up for alertscc.gov at alertscc.gov. And then you're able to get emergency information for the area that could be affected near you. That's how we respond to the fire. And at the same time, we identified potential shelter locations where people can at least get information about the fire. At Evergreen Community Center, we set up an information center. At other community centers, we started setting up shelters for potential evacuation. We did not have to evacuate anybody, but those are the kinds of the actions that take place in what we call an Emergency Operations Center, or EOC, and that's what I help facilitate and run, is this Emergency Operations Center. So the best decisions can be made with the best information we've got, identifying the resources we have and need, and sending those resources out.
And we do have a plan for our district specifically. There's a, I think the winery library is being used as a center for evacuees, and also the Almaden Community Center was recently used in a real fire emergency that happened just a month ago. And I really want to thank our fire department and Office of Emergency Management for their quick action and quick work to evacuate the community. What's the next question?
Our next question is from Steve, and he asks, given the current budget demands, will the organization of CERT be delayed?
Our budget did allow for the continuing of the CERT program. The only delay that we've experienced with the CERT program is the COVID pandemic we're experiencing right now. Because CERT relies on a lot of hands-on training, we have to figure out other ways of doing the training so we reduce the contact between people, whether it's over systems like Zoom. We actually have 3 upcoming trainings for those who've already been trained in CERT. We're calling them CERT refreshers. And we're using the Zoom platform to conduct those as a test for how can we do training for new people who want to become CERT members. So the process is still going on. The funding continued, and we're very pleased to see that we did not lose any of that funding during the budget cuts. And I want to thank Councilmember Khamis for, again, their support in making sure that the funds for CERT operations and supplies continued.
My pleasure. And yeah, we even try to host a CERT training session via Zoom a couple months ago as well. Next question.
All right. Our next question is from Desiree, and she's asking, is the office being stretched too thin right now in terms of resources due to the various emergencies that you mentioned?
Well, the resources are not only being stretched in our office, but across the city, because we've had so many response requirements for the COVID. For example, the food operation and delivery of food, going from 800 meals a week to helping facilitate the delivery of over 2 million meals each week, required the reallocation of city employees to those resources. And we have that ability because there's a state law called the Disaster Service Worker Rule, where any public agency employee is automatically during an emergency identified as a disaster service worker. And with that designation, they can be reassigned to other work as needed or as identified by the need of the emergency. So all of our departments were stretched because we started working in all these other areas that are not typically a city service. What we have been able to do now is be able to transfer things like the food delivery to the county, as well as a lot of our housing actions to the county. So now we're able to shift some of our employees back to operations of their normal activities so that we can, as we continue to progress through the state public health orders, we've now moved from purple response limitations to red. So there's a lessening of the restrictions. So we're starting to look at what city department operations we can return to service eventually as we continue through this COVID response. So thank you for that question.
All right, Adrian, what's next?
All right, now we will call on Ken to ask his question live.
Yeah, hi Ray. Thanks so much for taking time today. I think it's incredibly pertinent and useful information given what's going on. So I wanted to touch upon a bit more and expand about what you personally mentioned you do for emergency preparedness, which you said one of the things you did was kind of take photos of basically everything you have in your house for insurance purposes. And I think from I guess a standpoint of someone who maybe haven't done that before, it might seem really daunting, right? You know, you own so many things. Like, what are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to like dig out like years old receipts, or it might be a little bit confusing. So I was wondering if you could shed just a little bit more light on kind of the process through which you do categorize your belongings for insurance purposes. Thank you.
So, for example, I am providing this presentation from home, which is nice. I live in a different community, and right now I'm sitting in our dining room. So I'd want to have a picture that shows the general items I have in there. I don't need a picture of everything that I own, but a general picture of this room, all the different furniture, the photos. You can get a sense of what the value is. Our piano, all our, the nice dishes and the statuary that's in this little thing next to me. So I take a picture that generally shows that. I open up my closet, take a picture of my Finnegan's closet, and that might be a term too old for so many of you. But Finnegan's closet is the closet that has so much you can't shut the door. At least I take a picture of what's in there. I don't have to take a picture of each individual clothing item, but it gives a sense again of what did I own and what did I lose in the emergency. So I have that as documentation. Again, just a general picture of the kitchen. Was it an old kitchen, a new kitchen? That kind of, they'll sense that from the pictures. So that's what it's. And in fact, I learned this lesson significantly because I was working at East Bay Municipal Utility District at the time, in the firestorm of 1991 that went through the East Bay Hills. Some of the homes that were restored first were those people who literally took a video, ran through their house taking a video camera as they were getting ready to evacuate. So they didn't take the time to take everything out, but at least that video showed enough information of what the status of the home, the condition of the home was to the insurance company.
Good question.
Thank you so much.
All right, and I don't believe we have any more questions for Director Ray Riordan regarding emergency preparedness. So if anyone else, any attendees have any questions, please input them now. But if not, I think we will let Ray go now, and we thank you for being on.
Thank you, Ray, and thank you for all the work and your hard work of all the police and fire department to our city and our residents.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate being here, and I hope you all have a safe day.
Have a good one.
All right, and now we will transition to asking questions related to General District 10 business. And before we do that, I'd like to mention that we might go a little late until after 11 because we did start a few minutes late because of some technical issues. So our question is from Bill, and he's asking Councilmember Khamis about his initial support of the Strong Mayor initiative, and he wants to know why.
Well, you know, one of the reasons why I had supported a modified strong mayor, it wasn't a true strong mayor system, quite frankly, was the fact that it's difficult to move things along in the city. And as people know that we are frustrated with how fast building permits take time and how long it takes to clean up garbage, for example. And having more oversight by the mayor was a potential to increase, accountability. And that's one of the reasons why I was initially supportive of it. And but I did worry about the increased power in the position. This is the reason why I wrote my own memo to still allow City Council to have oversight of the firing and hiring process for department managers. And so this is why I said, I try to create a hybrid, kind of a meshing of two ideas. So in the end, it didn't go forward, but those are the reasons why I thought, we as City Council are expected to solve everyone's problems, and the mayor is the top of the pyramid, if you will. But people don't understand that we're kind of like the board and the chairman of a corporation. We don't do the day-to-day activities. It is our city manager and the department heads that actually are responsible for conducting the day-to-day activity, and they do not, in fact, they do not have to listen to us. That we make suggestions about where to clean up, about how the direction the city wants to go. We pass the budget, we decide where the money goes. But in the end, the city manager is responsible for all the activities that the city does. So, to give the mayor a little more, let's say, power to get things done is the reason why I supported it initially.
All right. The next question is from Bob, and he wants to know what's being done to clean up all the trash from San Jose/District 10, especially around the homeless areas.
Well, I just, at the beginning of this, I know we had a lot of problems with people logging in today, and my staff is still trying to figure out Facebook Live. But I did talk about how frustrating it is as a council member, because a lot of the homeless encampments and a lot of the garbage and the illegal dumping is near and on highway off ramps and on ramps. People don't understand that those are Caltrans properties or water district properties that we have no jurisdiction over. Our office has been begging Senator Bell's office and our state assembly members to actually ask Caltrans to clean up. Now, Caltrans did say that they will be cleaning up, though, at least the one on 85 and Almaden Expressway, which, by the way, is District 9, on the September 15th. But they did not promise to continue the cleanups. I wrote my own memo recently and four of my colleagues joined me, in fact, to try to negotiate a deal between Caltrans and the city of San Jose so that we can act quicker and get them to pay for it. There are a lot of programs that we put into place that they have not taken advantage of. The Downtown Streets team, where we take people who are homeless and actually train them to pick up garbage, and we were hoping that the state hire them to actually clean up the areas. There are programs that give people gift certificates for cleaning up the areas that they are inhabiting. There are lots of programs that we put into place, but quite frankly, I am as frustrated, or possibly more frustrated than all of you, because I feel helpless. Again, all these decisions are made by the city manager and our staff and people in other jurisdictions. So I hope that the memo goes forward. We did do something similar. Now, one of the hottest hotspots last year was the Union Pacific Railroad we actually tried to do the same thing, create a contract with them. They weren't negotiating, so we ended up going to a lawsuit to get them to pay attention. And now they are actually cleaning up once a month, and we're much happier now that they are doing that work, and it's a bit cleaner under Union Pacific. So I wanted to create the same type of agreement. I hope it doesn't take us long or get as ugly as the one with UP. But that is the direction that I'm asking the city to go forward with. And for those of you who missed my introduction, my office is planning on 2 or 3 community volunteer cleanups, and we're going to try to do this as safely as possible, considering COVID. But we are trying to work with the police department and our environmental service department and volunteers to pick up the garbage and have the ESD pick them up, and have the police there to help keep the roads clear and help with any safety concerns. So though my office is planning that currently, stay tuned. We'll be announcing community cleanups, and we will only take registered volunteers just so we can make sure that we have enough PPE on site when people come to volunteer. Because again, I have to tell you, I am as frustrated, if not more frustrated than all of you. And I think I was quoted in the Mercury News and the Spotlight over the last few days over my frustration and the fact that I actually wrote a memo to see if we can negotiate with Caltrans, because that's where most of the problem is.
Okay, I think we had one more question from Jackie in regards to the Quicksilver Park and the parking situation there. I know there was some communication on the chat between Jackie and Enrique, our analyst in District 10 that's been working on the situation, but I'm gonna unmute Jackie's line. I believe she would like to make some comments. And Jackie, I'm gonna unmute your line now if you have a specific question for a council member.
Thank you for hanging in there, Jackie.
No worries. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I apologize for not attending the session weeks ago. I had technical issues. But that said, I did listen to the entire thing. Thanks to your staff for getting that to me. My observation is the painting of the red curbs is a great idea. And I really feel for the neighbors who have difficulties right in front of their houses on their personal properties. And it actually broke my heart to hear of all the things that are happening for those neighbors. By painting red curbs, you're fundamentally pushing the problem just down the street. And I live down the street from where some of these red curbs are, and I have seen an increase in parking in front of my home, which is pretty staggering. I'm trying to understand the systemic solution to this problem as opposed to just continuing to push it, right? And one suggestion, I don't know if we want to, and I know you guys talked about permitting, which has its pros and cons and the city's capability. The other thing is making this more of a gated community and forcing the parking at the school, which has a better facility to address the needs of the people coming into this area to use the park. So that was kind of my question, is what's the systemic solution as opposed to these interim solutions that I think how we're addressing it today?
Well, I can tell you that, the park is a county park, and they've agreed to put up signage to tell them, hey, there's a different entrance, and that entrance has free parking or what have you. And so they're trying to move people down to the other entrance of the park. That's one of the things that they agreed to do during this last meeting. They've also agreed to have a follow-up meeting in a couple of months, so that we are going to do a follow-up meeting to see how the steps that they've been taking have been working. We've also, my office has promised during that meeting to contact the captain and see if we can get more enforcement of parking violators, people who are parking in front of people's driveways and blocking them. So I have asked that of our captain. You know, she did say that she would be moving some assets, quote unquote, to the area to make patrols on specific days, you know, like I told her in the mornings and in the evenings of weekends. And that's because that was the general consensus from what the meetings. Now, I don't know. Only the residents can tell me if they've seen increased police enforcement activities, or at least patrols. So those are some of the steps that we've been taking. Now, gated communities, I think I've had a community asked to be gated for all 8 years of my tenure, and I know that Nancy Pyle and Pat Dando also were asked to have this one community on the top of the hill be gated. It was not gonna, it just doesn't fly. The police department and the fire department won't allow it. As far as the curbs, yeah, it might be pushing the problem. I can tell you this, that our parks and the parks in the city have seen maybe a 300 to 400 fold increase in usage because of COVID. And I hope that after COVID is over, you know, we have a vaccine, that a lot of the normal activity will resume, because we were not seeing these kinds of numbers in the past. And it's just, I know it's exacerbated the community there, and I sympathize with you completely, because I think you know, I know that people are parking in front of your house all the time. Now, if you see somebody blocking your driveway and if you can't get out, then I would call 911. I wouldn't even call 311, because they're blocking your ability to leave your home, even in an emergency. That being said, people parking in front of on curbs, we cannot remove them if they're parked legally for 72 hours. Now, if they're there for 72 hours, then you can report them, and there's many ways to do so. There's a San Jose 311 app that you could take a picture of the car and have them removed. But I don't think that's what's happening there. I think people are just parking there to go for a hike. And a lot of times, from what I understand, you guys will report and the police come out a little too late. And so that's what I've been hearing from the public. I don't have a magic bullet or a cure to this, but I can tell you that the county agreed to do a lot more trash. So that they agreed to, in that video, is because we put them on the record, more trash pickups, more trash cans, more patrolling by their park rangers. They also asked, they were going to be putting up signage of please use the other entrance. And they also said that they were going to remove, they were trying to get, they removed from their website this entrance so that people can't see it on their website necessarily. So those are the steps that we have been taking with the county, and you did mention the red curbs. We've already done that as well, and we're increasing the number of red curbs, in fact, in the area. But that's what we can do.
Yeah, so I appreciate that, and I do want to encourage people to continue to use their parks, because I think it's good for the soul, it's good for the individuals, right, and the families and stuff. I just want to find a good balance for the community and the people who live in really near there, right? And it's not parking in front of the house, it's the garbage that's left, it's the other stuff that's happening in the vehicles, that we shouldn't have to observe as people who have purchased homes near this beautiful space that we occupy. And so I would just encourage you to look for more systemic solutions. Painting curbs, more trash, all of those are good steps, but it's not solving the root cause, which is, I'll just say, bad behavior on some people's part, that we need to figure out how do we get it out of in front of people's homes and into a parking lot where it can be more self-contained and managed there. I'm not a big fan of calling the police. They have far bigger problems than somebody's dropped trash or blocking my driveway. I'd rather try to avoid that problem so they can focus on what's really important to the city.
You know what I would, Jackie, I totally understand. We do want to help. What I would do, if I were a resident there, I would have a camera pointed in my parking area and a sign saying, "We see what you're doing." That's it, right on your grass or whatever, right? And so that people, just say, "Hey, the camera's pointed at you. Please watch your behavior," something like that. That you could do that. Anybody could do that on their personal property. And like I said, we are working with the county on this trash issue. I think it's a horrific issue, and and maybe we can even, if you would help us organize a community cleanup, I think it would be advantageous to get the community together, and you can work with my office to help do a community cleanup in the area, because I actually I live a quarter of a mile away, and I've never driven there. I walk there when I want to take a hike. Okay.
All right.
Any other questions from the public?
Well, we do have some questions, but because of time, we're going to wrap this up. We started a little late because of Facebook Live. So here we are at the end. To everyone who joined us via Zoom that wanted Facebook Live, this will be back up on Facebook as a recording. And if you are listening to this recording, if you have any questions, you can always email our office at district10@sanjose.org. But I'm going to hand it back to the council member to make some closing remarks. We have some updates and some upcoming events. Apologize to everyone for the technical glitches. It was completely out of our control, but we will figure out how to prevent this from happening in the future. But thank you.
All right. So, and thank you all for hanging in there with me this morning. So check out my next newsletter. It's full of great events and upcoming things. A big event is coming up on September 12th. It's the Almaden Valley Community Association meeting, and they're going to be discussing ballot issues, and that's going to take place at 7 p.m. You can go on their Facebook page or my newsletter, and maybe my staff can actually put on a link to this meeting. It's a very important meeting. A lot of people ask me, how I would vote on this or that. This is a great discussion. It's a balanced one. They have the pros and cons of each ballot measure, and there's a ton of them. So another one is next Saturday, September 19th, our District 10 Leadership Coalition will be meeting from 9 a.m. to noon, and you can join us for that. If your community, Jackie, if you're listening, if we can build a community association in your area, we would welcome that and welcome you at the table of the District 10 Leadership Coalition. And then on Thursday, September 24th at 6:30 p.m., I have Police Captain L. Washburn as a special guest, and you can ask her anything about illegal activity, speeding. We get these kind of illegal dumping. We get all kinds of complaints about these things in my office, and our captain of the Southern Division will be there to answer questions from the public. So tune in for L. Washburn, our captain for the Southern Division. And I also hold my monthly community office hours on the first Wednesday and the second Saturday of each month. The next one is going to be October 7th at 8:30 a.m. And the one after that will be October 10th at 10 a.m., just like we were trying to have today. So for any further, if you've missed anything, you can go on sjd10.com for more information. Thank you, and have a safe and productive day.